Dr. Maggie Labarda. Here. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, before I do this oath, which is really interesting, because normally the judge swears in the commissioners and so on and so forth. I do have to say just one quick.
Yes.
So when this special district was formed, it started with 5 statutory members. County commissioner, a school board member, superintendent, member of the DCF, and then a judge. And we were so honored to have Judge Bullard as one of our original 5. And so she is one of the original 5, which fires me up for many, many reasons. So let me go ahead and swear you in. If you'll raise your right hand.
I will.
All right. Repeat after me. Is that how we did this?
I think,
Okay.
yes, that's, yeah.
I, Suzanne Wilson Bullard,
I, Suzanne Wilson Bullard,
do solemnly
do
swear
solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and
the
defend
Constitution and government
the Constitution
of the United States and the state of Florida.
of the United States,
I am duly qualified to hold office
that I am duly qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the,
that I will well and faithfully perform
and that I
board member of the Children's Trust of Alachua County.
the duties of a.
That was
That's
a
a
hard
long
one.
one.
On which I am now about to enter.
On which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right.
Back.
All right.
Do I speak that?
You sign that on. All right, well, that fires me up and was the favorite part. So welcome. We now have member, the Honorable Suzanne Bullard, and we have 9 members, which is great. Okay, next up on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report. Madam Carter, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, everybody, to the Children's Trust, finally in our official training room / conference room / all-purpose room. We are so happy to have you all. It has been exactly a year since we moved in to this building, and we are here today having our first meeting. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm actually going to do another welcome. Keturah Bailey Acevedo, will you please stand? I want to introduce everyone officially to Keturah. She is the clerk of the trust and my executive assistant. We are so excited to have her join our team. Several of you in the community may know Keturah. She has worked for a number of years for the Caring and Sharing Learning School. always out in the community doing really, really good things. So we are excited to have her here. She will be a great asset to us. And just to tell you a little bit about Keturah, she didn't technically start until the 22nd of January. However, over the Christmas holidays, she came in for a week to get to know the staff, to literally offer to help us do things and just get prepared. So if that was any indication about who she is as a person, she is very giving, she is service oriented, and we are really excited to have her. So welcome, Keturah.
And before you get to the next part, let's just let the record reflect Dr. Hart is now here and Dr. Hart,
Do you have a question?
yeah, so this is your water bottle for the day. To help me out, if you'll leave it back close to you. And then if you'd like to speak, just stick it up there. And then I can see and recognize people and we'll go. That sounds great. Okay, all right, back to you, Marcia.
Yes, sir. So I want to highlight, we are again in this space. You will, over the next couple of months, see some additions to the space. We are excited to announce that we are going to have our official open house on March 29th. So please add it to your calendars. It's a community day. You're gonna have opportunities for the kids, for families, for our board members. We're planning a little program where we are going to do a building dedication. So March 29th, please add it to your calendar. Please plan to be at the Children's Trust for our grand opening to the community. Let's see, last week or week before, about 6 of us attended the FACT conference. Let's see, Florida Alliance of Council, Children's Service Councils and Trust. Our sister Children's Service Councils and Trust. We were all in Orlando together, and I don't see her in the room, but Mia Jones, our early childhood coordinator, presented on our Summer Bridge program, and I wanted to just give her a shout out. She did a great job talking about our program, our successes. You know, whenever we have the opportunity to talk about the work that we do here in our county, everybody oohs and ahs, and they want to know how they can duplicate what we do. So kudos to Mia for a great presentation and helping us showcase Alachua County. And then lastly, Mr. Chair, we want to, the tour already has it up. If you all will look at the screen, we want to shout out Swamp Bots. Dr. Hart, can you see their shirts? It says Children's Trust. They were sponsored by the Children's Trust, and the Frogmen came in 3rd, I believe, in the nation. Wow. And they now have the opportunity to go to Cape Town, South Africa, potentially, to represent the United States. So we are so excited about the work that Swamp Bots is doing with our STEM education programs and our young people from our county. So congratulations to Swamp Bot.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Clerk, if you can go ahead and note that Dr. Patton is now here and we have a full board. Dr. Patton, I'm doing a little exercise. Oh, you already told. All right, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for being. All right, so next up on the agenda is the Summer Camp and Freedom School RFP. Yeah, and so Chrissy, is that you? All right, you're recognized.
All right, good evening, everyone. Hopefully you all can hear me. Christy Goldwire, Chief Operating Officer for the Children's Trust of Alachua County. And today we are going to be presenting to you the Summer Camp RFP Summer Camp and Freedom School RFP. So it's a combination of the two. You will hear from a few of us today, myself, as well as Amy Wagner, who is on the research evaluation team, as well as Belita James, who is the Director of Program Operations. But I'm going to start you all off today. Next slide. I'm not sure who I'm supposed to be doing it.
Before we get started, Dr. Hart or Tina, do you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Take a little practice.
I know.
Yeah, we're slow.
So before we get started, just so everybody knows, the requested action is for the trust to approve the release, approve the allocation of 2 million, and ask to authorize the executive director planner to appoint a review team of members with subject matter expertise. I meant to say that when we first got started. So that's the recommended action. Action is item 12 on your tab. And with that, okay, Christie, you're up.
Okay, so someone help me figure this out. But I'm on this slide, so until I click, I'll do something. So just a recap for you all. The funding is, of course, in our fiscal year 25 budget for an allocation of $2 million. $2 million as well. And then the summer camp allocation is 1.84. And then for Freedom Schools, we're allocating about $160,000. The Freedom School expansion is to expand our Freedom School opportunities to the city of Hawthorne as well as to the city of Newberry. These will be 3-year contracts, so those who are successfully awarded dollars through this RFP will have 3-year contract terms with the Children's Trust. To prepare for releasing these dollars, the staff did a number of things. Of course, over the last 4.5 years, we have been working with out-of-school time providers, and so we have we made sure there were a number of opportunities for provider feedback as well as family feedback. We had internal staff sessions to plan for the release of the dollars. And then back in October, there was a feedback session with the board. And then, of course, we had one scheduled in January, but that one was canceled. Next slide. On page 144 in your board packet, you will find that there is a timeline that you all had the opportunity to review. A couple things that I just want to highlight for you. Applicants will have about 4 weeks to submit a completed application. Of course, there will be a bidders conference like we always do, and we do realize that it's better to have more than one bidders conference. So we have one in the morning as well as one in the evening. We'll continue to do our Q&A sessions for about 3 weeks while this application is out for bid. And we'll continue to offer our technical assistance, office hours, and all of those things can be scheduled directly with the staff. In addition to the supports that we normally offer through our RFP process, you'll notice within this timeline that we're collaborating with the Community Foundation to offer a Philanthropy Hub informational session. You may have noticed during your review of the board packet that is a part of the requirement. This is not necessarily a new requirement. We shifted it up to ensure that those things were in place during the correct time within this RFP. We thought it was important. Sometimes we do come across providers, nonprofits that are unaware of the Philanthropy Hub. So they were eager to collaborate with us and make sure this informational session is being offered to them. You'll see at the end, the bottom of the timeline, different trainings. Again, those are not new, but they are required. And so what we chose to do in evaluating our own procedures is to make sure they are included in the timeline so that anyone who is interested in applying for these dollars, they are aware of those dates and to go ahead and mark those as they are required. Next slide.
Dr. Lamar,
Is everybody on the board member with philanthropy hub?
give us a 30 second.
The philanthropy hub is operated. And you can funnel donations straight. I think somewhere.
One other, before we get started back, one other thing I forgot to say, bottle, recognize, push button.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. And then when you're done, back to written. Clerk is keeping me in order. Okay. I keep going, Christie. Thank you.
Right, so for the next two slides, I am going to turn it over to Amy, who's going to talk a little bit about the feedback that we received.
Responses are shown in black. We also, this chart also includes feedback from a survey that was released to the public back in early January through our website, email list, and Facebook. And we had 17 responses from the public survey, and 14 of them had worked with CTAC in the past. So trends from these, from this survey exclusively are in purple. And then the green items are trends from both the public were what we found in responses from both the public survey and the provider reflections. So the main thing that I want to highlight from this chart is that SAF training was mentioned a lot in both the provider reflections and the surveys, specifically in managing camper behavior and working with youth with special needs. So this is an area of opportunity and improvement, and providers express they'd like to have support in this area.
Okay, thank you, Amy. So let's continue to walk through the scope of the RFP. The next slide should be the minimum qualifications to bid. You all should be familiar with the top three. Of course, those are will always be found in all of our RFPs. And then the last four, of course, were created specifically for this funding initiative. It is our expectation for you to receive actual application to complete, that you will have experience managing in-person out-of-school time programming such as after school and summer camps, that you will have gone through and received your verification through the Philanthropy Hub. We're also requiring that all 501c3s and nonprofits provide a letter of support from their board of directors. And then all for-profits, LLCs, churches, government organizations must provide a reference letter from a community partner and a letter of support from their executive leadership. We thought it was important to include these, as sometimes we get applications where a site is listed and the owner of that site is unaware, has not approved it. There are times where leadership board of directors are unaware of an application to receive funding from the trust. And so that just go ahead and get the conversation started for that organization. Next slide. We heard a lot, from our board about the type of camps that you all were interested in us funding. And so specifically for traditional summer camps, we're looking for fun and exposure, an opportunity to intertwine learning and adventure together. And we are expecting that the youth are developing not only new skills, but lasting friendships, lasting mentorships, coaches, individuals that they're meeting throughout the camp. Next slide. Target population, of course, will always be children residing in Alachua County from different socioeconomic backgrounds up to 300% of the federal poverty level. This is new, right? So during our feedback session in October, we increased it from 200% to 300%. So that includes a lot more families. It relaxes a little the restriction of the funding because it's the county. We help a lot of individuals, a wide range of residents within our county. And Alice families, absolutely. Next slide. In addition to income, we did continue to keep the scholarship opportunity for children in foster care, in involuntary and formal kinship care, children in home case management supervision, as well as families receiving SNAP benefits. And these are full scholarship only. So the staff is not recommending partial scholarships anymore. Those families are not being eliminated. Our income requirements increase, therefore they would still be covered. And of course, we are looking for sites across Alachua County. And we are encouraging applicants to collaborate with schools, city and county government for parks and recreation departments, community organizations, faith-based, as well as community centers. Next slide. Any proposal that includes a camp located in Waldo, Archer, or Hawthorne will be awarded bonus points during the application process.
Thank you. I noticed we kind of shrunk down the bonus points areas. Was that because we've had good participation in those areas? I noticed La Crosse did not have an asterisk there. Have we had good participation?
No, we don't actually have, I don't think we funded a camp there. These three were decided by the board. And so if the board is interested in making any recommendations or changes, we can do that at this meeting.
I was thinking La Crosse is rural and it is out in that Montauk area that we maybe should consider doing that. If we get an applicant from out in that area, that we consider adding them to bonus points. It's a small community. I don't know if we'll get anybody from there. So I mean, it's not a hill I'm willing to die on, but I do think it's something we should consider.
It's an easy add if that is what the board would like to do.
Dr. Hart?
Can I just add one thing about La Crosse? They call it Lacrosse.
True, they do.
They've had the same mayor for 31 years. It would be one phone call to find out what's going on there and see if they would be interested in our funding for any of their children's programs. They don't have a lot of children. They don't have a lot of people,
I know it is small,
but it's a happening little place.
close to the Montauk, right? Not, I mean, car close, not walking close, but car close.
And then the next slide is where we're going to go into detail about scheduling, frequency, and duration. And based on the feedback during the October meeting, it was decided that camps should operate 5 days a week, with the exception, of course, of holidays and closures. Camps should operate for a minimum of 8 hours per day. And camps will, however, have the flexibility to propose the number of weeks that their camp will operate. We are offering bonus points to camps proposing a minimum of 8 weeks during the summer. So if they operate for 8 weeks, they will get bonus points in the application process.
Christie. Thank you. Kind of conflicting messages there. Camps should operate a minimum of 8 hours per day, and then you're talking hours and weeks. Never mind. Forget it. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Amy Wagner, who for the next few slides will talk about program activities, framework, and evaluation.
Okay, so we made a minor change to this slide. In 2021, UF's Youth Development Research Practice Partnership completed a summer needs assessment and developed recommendations for CTAC summer programming. They presented a framework based in current research in child and adolescent development, out-of-school time programming, and summer academic learning to guide the development of summer programming. So these categories can serve as a guide for providers when planning camp themes and activities. So in outlining for us the activities that they're planning to implement, which we'll talk about in a second, they can choose, they don't have to choose activities from all of these categories, but we are going to ask that they choose activities from at least one of these categories. So I just want to go through each one briefly. For academic, these are activities that are designed to improve success in school. Typically, these activities are led by highly trained staff, such as certified teachers or tutors. For enrichment, these are activities that broaden knowledge and or culture, including but not limited to STEM or STEAM activities, the arts, music, and environmentalism, so they build background knowledge. Exploratory, these are activities that engage in active inquiry, decision-making, and problem-solving. Physical health, play, and recreation, these are activities that allow for fun, physical activity, and health. And then moving to our second bucket, which is transformative development. Social activities, activities that improve abilities to care, show empathy, cooperate, resolve conflict, and contribute to the group. Emotional activities that improve emotional development, such as self-awareness, motivation, efficacy, and self-confidence. And grounding, these are activities that improve children's sense of identity, meaning, and purpose, and their role in the larger community. So these skills in this second column, these are skills that can be developed in youth on an ongoing basis throughout the day, or through explicit programming, and having staff that have an understanding of positive youth development and child-centered care can help foster them. For example, teaching staff how to build relationships with campers, speaking with children on their eye level, incorporating youth voice and choice into activity planning, learning how to de-escalate conflicts among youth, and promote community in a camp group are skills that staff can learn to enhance camper experience. So these are things that can definitely be implemented in staff training. And then finally, with structure and agency, youth benefit especially from programs that utilize well-planned daily, weekly, and seasonal schedules of activities with clear components and rationale for each component. A clear, organized schedule also allows youth to expect and more fully engage in each activity. Program leaders should also build in opportunities for youth to exercise agency and decision-making in program schedules, allowing youth to explore, learn, and contribute to the collective camp experience. Yes, thank you. So that's a good transition into this slide. This is a chart that's going to be in the RFP. So in the RFP, we're going to ask applicants to describe the activities they are planning within the conceptual framework that I just discussed. We're giving them lots of flexibility, so they don't need to implement activities from all of the programming categories. As I said before, just one, but they're welcome and encouraged to think about their summer programming within the framework. And so also new for this year, we're going to ask providers to submit a schedule of activities for the first week of camp. The purpose of this is to ensure, especially for new summer camp providers, that programming and activities are well planned in advance. And there's clear rationale for each activity that aligns with the camp's overall mission. This will also help providers think about materials and staffing needs in advance as they prepare their budget. Also,
Actually, y'all said you only had to supply it one time, 1 week.
just 1 week with the application, correct?
Asking them to supply that for the duration of their program so the parents can see what's.
Oh, so
happening.
parents can.
So what we Yes, what we do know is that most of our organizations are already doing that. However, we were not requiring them to provide us with that information. And so if they do it once, then it gives us a really good example of how prepared they are, how much they understand what their, program is, how it's gonna function, how it's gonna operate. So we feel really good about this one time during the application process. Of course, the contract managers will be fully aware of those weekly schedules, what's happening and that sort of thing.
Okay, I wouldn't ask them to supply us with it necessarily, but just make sure they parents, during the,
Yes.
so the week, so the parents can see what happens.
Uh,
And I don't know whether this is the appropriate time to ask this question, but I think it is. Literacy, we talked about literacy. Conclusion that let's let the kids have a good time, but one of the things that's in this RFP is we encourage literacy. So and I think it's a good idea from the perspective that we know that there's going to be a drop off. So is there anything that we can do to like encourage to a couple points for literacy? They have a literacy component. Bonus points. That would be, to me, that would seem like an appropriate way of handling it. Not telling them that we, that it increases. They get, that increases their odds. We increase our odds of staying maybe drop off.
Member Certain?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a robust conversation about this, and I thought we kind of as providers to try to hire skilled staff to be able to provide that. We do have Freedom School that is their focus, that's in their wheelhouse. But I don't think we should put the points in for that, because to be able to do academic enrichment during the summer, a heavy lift for most of our providers. And I'll leave it at that. I saw some other bottles for it, so I'm hoping my other colleagues will help me to to get that. I mean, and Lee, the summer slide is real. I agree with you. It is something, but I think in this right here, some of the kids that are behind in school, they do need the additional support. The district is kind of looking at revamping how they do summer school. It's only going to be for elementary school. But our older students, a lot of them don't even have an elective already in high school, in middle high school, because of the remediation classes they're having. So this summertime is a way for them to explore and to get out of, just kind of to do that. But I just think the biggest reason why I am against adding points to it is staffing. These providers have a hard time of getting good people work the summer and to do their regular programming without having to try to get people to do academic enrichment.
So, Member Pinkison, if you want to respond, and then.
My response was, that's why I was saying make it voluntary. They don't have to do it. We would like to see a literacy component. We encourage.
You want to give them points, and I'm just saying, like,
Give them points. I don't want to, give them points to, if
some people can put that in there and get the points to get the incentive and not necessarily do a really good job of doing academic enrichment. So I'm saying, don't even worry about giving the points.
well, and that's going to be determined. That gives our people the opportunity to explore it. That's why they go through the vetting process. And if they recognize that it's not going to be a worthwhile program, they don't get the points.
But that's gonna make them be academic.
Okay, hold on. So we're going back and forth, back and forth. We heard you. We heard you. I want to recognize the other members, then we'll ask staff to respond, and then we'll finish the presentation, and then we'll get a motion on the floor. Member Patton.
So, another thought that maybe the school system could help out on is if you had certain ages, we could probably try and take the lead to just like this book with these activities, or something like that, so that you're also standardizing, and it's not that somebody's not gonna do a quality job, but the kinds of questions that we'd be able to have the kids help with, everybody might not think that. So I think from our end, we'd be happy to kind of pick off the grade levels and provide, so if you are gonna do an incentive somehow or another, you could say to also potentially use some of the whatever. Curriculum or suggested materials so that they don't put it in because they don't know how to do it. That makes sense.
Thank you. Member Labarda and then Member Hart.
I'd like to encourage us in the summer. I'm going to support what Member Sturton said about not assigning points to this. I think in the summer particularly, we need to take a broad view of literacy, what supports literacy, because those are just ending the summer slide. So this is also an opportunity for some of our kids to experience things that normally their family would not be able to afford them. Going to a museum, doing activities that would support literacy by enriching them in terms of experience, exposure, all of which have been shown to support reading. So if what we mean by literacy is reading, that's only a piece of it. There's also content and the ability to support that. And I think that if we evaluate the quality of the programs and each of the other areas as really enriching, finding that competent, then we are supporting literacy. And I don't think awarding points for somebody who has a reading program is the way to do that, particularly in a summer program.
Dr. Hart.
I just have a quick comment because I'm kind of remembering when we had this discussion before, Christy Harrington said something that rocketed into my brain. I can't remember what she said, and I don't know when in public comment she can say what she said before, but in general, I love the idea of the school system saying, well, if you're doing this activity, this book wouldn't be a bad idea. And surely whoever's running these camps needs something to do with kids sitting down and being quiet for a second, just so their staff don't go cuckoo. Just saying.
Okay, anyone else on this item before we keep moving, and then once we get a motion on the floor, we'll see where we go on this. Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Amy. Well, first of all, Chrissy, did you have anything else to say about this? Okay. Marcia?
That's okay.
No, go ahead, speak.
I think we covered. I was just going to bring back to your remembrance the discussion and the feedback that the majority had provided. So we covered it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hart, did you have anything to add?
Okay, so staff training. We know from our provider survey that staff training is an area providers could use more support with. As I said previously, staff training and positive youth development, social emotional learning, family engagement, also literacy, and relationship building all yield positive benefits for youth and enhance camp quality. Formal training on safety protocols, playing out emergency scenarios, where's the first aid kit, who calls 911 in an emergency, are all very important components of pre-camp training. Training also allows providers to build a staff culture where everyone understands the mission, why they're there, and their role in carrying out the mission. So CTAC is going to support directors in owning their own staff training. We have a required training for directors or whoever at the camp will be taking on staff training. In this interactive training, we will talk about strategies and tools for training staff, give lots of resources, hear from one another about challenges, people who are doing really well with staff training, and we're planning to invite guests, experts on the subject to come as well. Lastly, CTAC is going to host first aid and CPR training and mandated reporting training for camp staff. And like I said, these are required. So these are our performance measures for our providers. New measures for this year are in purple and focus on staff training. So these are probably things that directors are doing already, and we're just going to be capturing it in our performance measures. So number of staff training sessions. We already have a post-program family survey, which is going to capture most of our how well and better off measures. And we're going to add a staff survey that staff will take at the end of the summer, where they will touch on on these bottom two. Staff felt training equipped them to succeed in their role, and equip them with skills to maintain a safe environment and handle emergencies.
Dr. Laura?
So I have a question about the performance measures on the how well and the better off, particularly the better off, I think. We're doing a parent survey for satisfaction. We've asked the providers to identify an area that they're going to focus on. Are we going to ask specific questions relative to that area of focus so that we know if at least the parents and I would hope the youth feel like they've gained some ground in those?
I know we do ask open-ended questions. What did you learn? What was the best part about camp? What did you like least about camp? But we can tailor them to kind of match what the mission and the theme of the camp is.
I mean, I think it's really important that we start to measure something beyond just satisfaction and happiness with it.
Bud?
So these are our data requirements and collection. The new participant characteristic we're going to be asking is special education status, and that's just a yes or no that they can indicate. And then for our data reporting, providers will be collecting attendance, field trip attendance, participation in family engagement. Like I said, we'll have the family satisfaction and staff survey. And as always, the providers will do an end of year reflection. Family engagement. So research tells us that family engagement is a great thing. And there's a big staff training component here too. Train staff about, our directors can train staff about the importance of family engagement, what it looks like specifically at this camp, how it aligns with the camp mission. Are we greeting parents, sharing positive things with parents about their kids, what they accomplished, how they can extend learning and activities at home? If the parent isn't the one picking up the child, maybe we can be sure to call the parent, tell them about positive things that are going on at camp. This work is intentional. Family engagement is intentional. It helps with behavior management as well, which is a challenge mentioned by providers in reflection. It leads to better outcomes for kids. So we are requiring providers to host at least one family engagement event. It can be a pre-camp orientation, a showcase of camper work or artwork, a guest speaker. Providers can be creative. And camps can for sure host more than one event if they would like.
Member Certain?
Are families able, I'm sorry, are providers able to collaborate to do something?
Thank you, Amy. On page 155 of your board packet is where you had an opportunity to review the evaluation criteria for our summer camps only, as Freedom School has their own set of evaluation criteria. This outlines the points provided for each of those areas. New sections for evaluation criteria for summer camps include the provider video as well as the site letter agreement.
Member Certain?
Site agreement letter, is that for where they'll be hosting the camp, just to say that they have access to the space?
For budgeting and compensation, all applicants must complete a site budget as well as a summary budget form that has been created by our CFO, and it will be provided to them. They'll also receive training on how to correctly complete that form through our bidders conferences. The entirety of the program budget will be used to calculate the cost per child per week. Contracts awarded for summer camp dollars will be limited to $3 per week, per child per week, excuse me. and then $350 per child per week for specialty camps. The trust is defining specialty camps as those that are, or an example, because it's not all of the ones that could potentially qualify as a specialty camp. But those that serve special needs children only, arts and STEM camps, arts and music and STEM camps.
I just said, ooh, 350, that special needs one. I saw, you remember we had the family that came that had the low student.
And then finally, just an idea, just gives you a glimpse at the required attachments that will be included. We do provide them with a submission checklist to ensure that all the necessary documentation is included for a final application. Mr. Chair, this concludes the presentation. There is a presentation for Alachua Freedom School and
Okay, let's go ahead and pause here. I just want to take a kind of a survey of the room. Who here is here to speak about this item? Okay, that's fine. Why don't we go ahead and finish the Freedom School and then we'll take questions from the board. We'll get a motion on the floor. We'll have discussion about the motion and then we'll open it up to the public and then we'll move on.
at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Belita James, who will be presenting.
So I'm going to be, I was not ready.
Welcome. Yes.
The Children's Defense Fund, Freedom School, they address summer learning loss in populations where children fall behind academically because their families and or community may not have access to high quality summer programming. So we currently fund one Alachua Freedom School here in Gainesville, and in we would like to expand our access to Freedom School by putting them in rural communities. And we have decided that we would like them to be in Hawthorne or in Newberry. Our target population is, as the first one is as summer, Alachua County, of course, rising kindergartners through rising 12th graders. This slide is going to be slightly different than what you may have in your packet. It's the 60% of the participants should be under 300% of the federal poverty level. The applicants do have the flexibility to choose option 1 or option 2, and the difference is they will have 30 scholars or 40 scholars, and they can choose level 1, 2, 3, or 4, and they can either choose to put students in each level or they can just concentrate on one grade level. Oh, yeah. The service locations are the same as summer, with the exception of they have to be in Newberry or Hawthorne, but we do give examples of where the programming can be housed: schools, city, county park facilities, community organizations, community centers, and faith-based locations. Which brings us to scheduling, frequency, and duration. Sites must offer 6 weeks of programming from June to August. This is in line with the Freedom School model. Sites must operate for a minimum of 8 hours per day and also 5 days a week. Our program activities, these have to be integrated into what they do in their programming. During their training, these 9 components will be presented during the training. This is to ensure that fidelity is reached during the summer programming, and the expectation is that these program activities are ongoing throughout the 6 weeks of the Freedom School programming.
Number 7.
Were those 2 cities chosen because you've kind of got a lead on?
Well, for Hawthorne, we chose Hawthorne because they have been consistently, needing to address their summer slide. And we want to be able to reach those in Waldo as well. And for Newberry, we haven't had any programming in Newberry. And then we want to also reach Archer as well.
Yeah, thumbs up from the school board member.
Okay. So for staffing, this is what the staffing will look like for Freedom School. Each site will have a site coordinator, 3 to 4 servant leader interns. That is because they have a ratio of 1 to 10. So if you have the 30 scholars, they will need 3 servant leader interns. If they have 40, they will need 4. And then of course, all of them will need 1 assistant servant leader intern. All sites will fall under the umbrella of the executive director of Aquaba Freedom School as well as the project director. For the training, as well as our summer camp, of course, background, the ratio is 1 to 10, as I mentioned earlier. Of course, we're doing the infant and child CPR. They will have to attend and complete a CDF National Freedom School training, which will take place in Knoxville, and then the local Freedom School training that will be done by the Aquaba Freedom School Executive Director, as well as CTAC will offer a Freedom School kickoff training to assist them with invoicing and data collection. I will turn it over to Amy so that she can speak with you about the performance measures.
So similar to the other summer camps, we're looking at number of children served, number of program days, scholar attendance. We are looking here also at parent caregiver involvement, because part of the Freedom School model is that they do have multiple family engagement events. We have as well, parents were satisfied with camp communication and overall experience. Part of the Freedom School model also is that they do a pre and post reading test. So we're looking to see if scholars improved or maintained their reading scores. Also, the Freedom Schools has a survey that all of the Freedom Schools use, so we use that survey as well, and that scholars gain, an item on that survey is scholars gain confidence. And then also from art, they will take our survey as well, which will fill us in on the targets. Families were satisfied with the learning activities and they felt that their children were safe at camp.
Pickison, get your.
On the performance measures, they do other academic ventures other than just reading?
Yes, they do.
Yes, yeah.
Everything is centered around reading. So they have field trips, they do family engagement nights.
Yes.
Social emotional, he's got.
Oh,
He wants to know about
math.
And math, you know.
Math, they do math, yes.
Then can we ask about math as well? Because math, I noticed that math did worse locally than,
Okay.
so, and if they do a science component, you know, was there any gain? Have to test, you know, but was there improvement in academically? Can they tell us how they were pre and post?
What I'd like to have the opportunity to do is Dr. King about it, because it depends on what the Children's Defense Fund is asking them to do, because it's done to fidelity today. We can, however, ask them if there's the opportunity to pull that type of information. I think though we just need to be careful to make sure we're not steering them outside of what CDF requires them to do. But I do like the idea of going and saying what additional information can we. All right.
And for our data requirements and collection, similar to the other summer camps, the purple is new for this year. We're going to collect information on special education status. And again, that's just a yes, no. But similar to the other camps, we're collecting demographic information, background checks from staff. And also similar to other camps, we're collecting daily camp attendance, field trip attendance, participation at those family engagement events. Like I said, we'll be administering this RCTAC Family Satisfaction Survey. And there's also a survey used by the Children's Defense Fund that we'll be using as well. And then the basic reading inventory, which will provide us with that pre-post. And then we'll look into if there are other measures as well that CDF is collecting. And then we'll do the end of year reflection as is required by everyone as well.
Member Chance?
Thank you. I was just noting that the summer camp program, it's on slide 125, adds up to 90 points without the bonus. Freedom School is 100 points, but no bonus. So the most I could get on the summer camp program is 90 points.
That's a good catch. So hold on a second. So that's a good catch. So Chrissy, how would you propose making that change? Well, that goes right into your point, which may be a moot point, because
And I have a second. 50,
Without the bonus.
70.
25 is 25, that's it.
what she's saying is the bonus.
The bonus is included.
Right. I would increase
Well,
bonus
and
should
make
be
it
bonus,
105.
bonus should be bonus.
unless it's out of 90. Yeah.
I would have to increase the other points and then the total points they could get is one, yes.
100 and then the bonus.
And then the bonus will take them over, yes.
And a second,
I could, but yeah, we're gonna, yeah.
Member Chance?
second point I was just wondering about, my memory of Freedom School presentation before, we were so impressed with the outcomes and matched that up with the need programs like that in other areas, and that they have structure to be able to replicate and bring it to other areas. So we're proactively encouraging them to integrity of their model, which is fantastic. My question is, how do we consider with summer camp programs past performance, or do we consider past performance? Double-edged sword, because you don't want to discourage new programs, but you all did have an experience with contracts before with folks, and I just wonder, is there some mechanism? Because there could be another day where we say, hey, these programs are fantastic, and maybe fund transportation to bring more kids from outlying areas to these programs, as opposed to starting from scratch when you consider staffing, et cetera. So just wondering about that feedback loop from things other than Freedom Schools for next.
Thought about that?
So no, but it's a good point. I think we can look into it. We haven't considered that perspective as of yet, but
Dr. Lamar?
That point, I mean, we've talked about the need to start really looking at providing evaluative and good standing kind of an approach, and I would say that at some point there will be at a baseline number of their goals and objectives and others that don't, and if you're not meeting at least that baseline, then you got to ask yourself whether eligibility for a new application makes any sense. I'm not sure we're there yet. I don't know that we are. I think we're still young in our CQI and you know, testing that kind of data, but I think at some point, this tool that says where people are in all of the different areas will tell us who's in good enough standing to continue to apply for funding and who might not be.
Executive Director Cranor?
Thank you, Maggie. That's exactly where I was going. Our next presentation, CQI, is really going to be discussing just that. And as we begin to move forward, that's when this board will have to start making those kinds of determinations based on our recommendations about whether or not we should be continuing to fund certain providers. Staff may be coming to you mid-year saying that we want to pull contracts. So I think we are finally about to begin that process.
Good point, Chrissy, on page 125, to be perfectly consistent, I would change those to 25, 35, 25, 5, and 10. Bonuses at 5 and 5. So that would reduce site agreement from 15 to 10, not 3 by 5. Is that what you're thinking? That would be consistent with 137, I think. My comment on member Chance's other point, this feedback loop is, from my perspective, really, really important. I think maybe it's one more term. If this was a 1-year contract, I would say maybe it's 1-year term, but we're talking about 3-year contracts. I don't want to wait 3 years to focus in on best practices. I don't want to wait 3 years to focus in on who's doing a really, really good job. They should get more funds. So I don't know how to, maybe y'all can think about that when we're getting public comment, but I would love a recommendation from staff with regards to whatever motion comes up, that we incorporate that feedback loop sooner rather than later, because that was one of our major discussion points that came out of last.
Could make the contracts renewable contingent upon an evaluation at the end of each year.
Like that. That solves it for me. Yeah. Especially since we have performance measures. Maybe it's something that we look at after we hear the next item. So we could come back and add that to the RFP, but that's where I am. Yeah, I like that. Yep.
I think I'm tracking now with what she's asking. I think we are doing that. And so what you will hear, piggybacking off of ED Kiner, is not only within our CQI process, but where we've had to do that already and how we continue on. We don't intend to, just because it's a 3-year contract term, fund them every single year just because.
Okay. Well, then,
So we look at their performance measures. This fiscal year, we already have mid-year reviews, not only to look at their fiscal requirements, but also their performance measures to then determine how we're going to adjust dollars, whose contract is going well. And so I just needed to think through that question a little bit and wait to hear what she said. I'm like, okay, now I understand what you're talking about.
so we'll really see that in the next agenda item on Thursday.
We'll see how that that CQI process has been created for us to review that. And then in April, potentially April or May, that's when we come back to the board with recommendations on any contract changes.
Get through this presentation and we'll get a motion on this.
The evaluation criteria, I promise it adds up to 100. Um, so this should match what you have in your packet. Okay. And then budgeting and compensation, of course, CTEC has allocated up to $160,000 for the Aquaba Freedom School expansion. Their requirements is just a site budget and a summary budget. And during the bidders conference, they will also be informed on how to do that correctly. And award recipients, of course, they will have access to advance payment and we will train them on monthly reimbursement. The submission checklist, this just gives you an overview of what attachments we will be looking for within the application. And that concludes the summer camp and Freedom School RFP presentation.
Okay, let's do questions and we'll get a motion from the floor. Member Shorten, then member Pigs.
Before you leave, was the 160, was that for all 3 sites or was that just for the 2 sites? So where's the budget for, I mean, what's the main site? Are they're already in the midst of a 3-year contract? Oh, okay.
In addition to.
In addition to that, okay.
Member Piggison. Go ahead and put the green button.
Thank you. The first 3 is written down in our packet. And then number 4 would be to include bonus points for possible programs in Micanopy and La Crosse. And number 5 would be to.
Hold on, so that was member Shorten's comment of so adding the asterisks to Micanopy and La Crosse.
Right.
In addition to Waldo, Hawthorne, and
No, just La Crosse, I said. Just La Crosse, not making no.
La Crosse.
but if we're doing La Crosse, should we do Micanopy?
Nope, it has a provider though. We were trying.
Oh, they already have a provider. Oh, I'm sorry.
And they have had, yeah.
Coordinate with the school board with recommendations of age-appropriate reading materials for summer programs. And number 6 would be, to change the point allocation as discussed.
That's what we talked about, Christie. All right, so we have a 6-part motion. Do I have a second? Got a second from member Chance. All right, is there discussion? First of all, by the board before we go to the public. Everybody understand the motion? No bonus points, but it does ask to coordinate with the school board on the reading. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's a good compromise. The master of compromise from the good input from our superintendent. Thank you. All right, at this time, we will now ask the public, who here wants to speak to the motion? Raise your hand. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you'll go ahead and make your way to the podium, introduce yourself. The clerk will be timing you 3 minutes. We're not gonna hold you direct to it, but look for her to wave if you're getting to that point, and just wrap up your comments, introduce yourself. And we love to hear from you. Thank you for being here.
Hello, I'm Aldrika Everett. I'm the executive director of ACES in Motion. So the little backstory, I have been in my position about a full year now going into March. So I jumped right into a partnership with CTAC right as we were transitioning out of Duval, moving and about to launch summer camp. So it was definitely a whirlwind for me and for my staff, which I think we fared well. One of the things I think was the biggest challenge for us was the financial reimbursement process, which we have a great relationship with Max and our contracts. And Scott, thank y'all for everything y'all do. I think preparing for summer, though, is where we found the biggest struggle, in that we're going to provide you all with a budget based off of a certain number of students that we're planning for. And I think, I'm not sure, I know you got a lot of feedback from the parents and from, other providers, but the idea that a lot of our students may not travel or can be there every single day was not necessarily true. Like, there were parents who needed to take their kids other places, or they would visit family during summer. So we were budgeting for about 25 kids, and there were times where they could not be there. So that left us in a place where we are having to fill holes of, like, we're not being reimbursed for a specific amount of students. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So we're expecting this amount of money. We can't receive that because the students are not there, but we've already bought the shirts and the materials and all the things that we need in order to make our camp successful. And of course, we will, bite the bullet on that one, but we can't return those things. So is there a way in which we can come to a compromise where we work together on how that reimbursement process works, is my first question. And then just a little note I want to add, when you all think about literacy things, which I love the idea of the school district helping us, please don't forget teenagers in just middle and high school. I think a lot of things are geared towards younger students. I myself serve middle and high school only, and they absolutely need that support. So we're working with other we're finding other partnerships in the community to serve them, but we absolutely need to remember that middle and high school students should not be left behind in that process. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We're going to get everyone's comments and then we'll try to address the questions. Next speaker. Don't be shy. Come on up. Feel free to queue up behind Christy, whoever's next. Or, okay, Kim can go first. You? Glad to see you here.
So thank you all for supporting us in our program called Let's Dance, which is a program for special needs children. We are in our fourth week right now, in partnership with the city of Gainesville, Carol Velasquez. We're working at Oakview Park, and it's been 100% retention. Students that are there, most of them, there's several in wheelchairs that are very, very mobile, but they dance, and they have music and they move, and it makes a difference in their lives. This came about because I saw a wheelchair company in Miami. It was adults, and I thought, why not kids? And I saw arts and medicine. Well, those kids, they're sick, right? Well, the kids that are well fall between the cracks, they really do. There's really nothing for them in dance and movement, outside of, a few little things, but this is a big thing. So, but the issue is that summer camps for them is too much for them. The parents that are there saying, 45 minutes is a lot, then you have to take a break, then another 45 minutes, then a break. And then if they've had 2 or 3 over these 45 minutes, they're exhausted for the rest of the day. They can't go any longer. So my request is for a summer camp and I know that summer camps are always 8 hours, but these are special kids with special needs. And I would like to request an exemption to do a half day for that. And that's You know, it's, you have a pamphlet here. It has some of the pictures of the kids that have been attending. I mean, one child, mother said, I know she's enjoying it. She's moving her eyes. She's moving her eyes with music. It's a very, it's moving, it's emotional. It makes a difference in their lives, and it's something that they don't have any other opportunity to do. So we're very happy to do this, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting that. And we'd like to continue doing this, and Carol Velasquez has reserved a week just in case. And we want to continue doing these programs during the year too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you just, for the clerk, just introduce your name so she knows?
Kim Tuttle, Tuttl.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, next speaker. Christie, come on. We're gonna respond after everyone's done with public comment.
Hi there, I'm Christy Arrington, Executive Director of Girls Place. I'm kind of bummed about our snow day because I think the opportunity to have reflected more on this RFP, more time would have been helpful. The first thing is, my hope is closing down the room. My hope is that as we look forward, we can work on the timeline because we'll start registration in March and we won't be able to notify families until April. And so the anxiety that that causes parents is going to be incredibly high. We'll continue to be very optimistic, but we can't make any promises to parents until your meeting in April. And from the outside looking in, I respect the process. There was lots of meetings and I appreciate hearing that. There feels like a disconnect though in the board feedback and then what's coming out in the RFP. For instance, 8-hour days, there was some feedback about having shorter days for programs that need it. The $300 a week, the board, what the consensus I heard was there didn't need to be a guideline on that. And partial scholarships, the board was in favor of continuing those. So those feel like some disconnects. I'm a huge advocate of the partial scholarships because it is actually going to hurt two-parent households. Those households where parents are making $30,000 each, and they have 2 to 3 children. And we are really fortunate that we have multiple siblings and families. And immediately looking at this, it's going to impact them. And we raised our rates at a time that's really hard for a whole lot of people. And so not having that partial support is going to be painful to tell families too. I also shared the opportunity to be flexible with our scholarship dollars. And so if we're awarded $15,000 for full scholarships to allow us the flexibility to utilize all that money. The way that the reimbursement went last summer was that couldn't have this. Okay, for example, Christy and I and Marcia were all going to summer camp. I'm going to go for 4 weeks. Christy's going to go for 4 weeks. Marcia's going to go for the full 10 weeks. We could not get reimbursed for all 3 of us on the same week because Christy and I were sharing a scholarship. Trying to make that super simplified. We stayed within our budget because there's no way that Max and Scott are going to allow us to go above the budget, but allowing flexibility within that to allow the dollars to be used well is another hope. In terms of the professional development and training, that's awesome. I'd like you to consider the percentage of staff members who say that the training itself prepared them for the summer, because that's a really high percentage, because training itself is not. The on-the-job training with the families and with the kids, that is going to be the difference maker. Then it's going to be more critical than the beforehand, because we can role play all day long. We can talk to you all day long, but actually working with the children will be the difference maker. So consider that percentage to lower it, or consider that the initial training and ongoing training. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Christy. Okay.
I don't know.
Text it to me.
You want to finish real quick, Hank?
I will.
We're gonna try to give you guys a little heads up that your time's coming.
I'll just stand right here with a really great question. Could the school system transport kids from summer school to summer camps? Would be a solid question, because transportation is a challenge. The other piece is a question really, is CPR required for all staff? Because that exceeds any other requirements. I appreciate y'all.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, next speaker.
Hi, everyone. Allison Marks, Executive Director with Kids Count. I'm going to echo quite a few sentiments shared by my colleagues, namely transportation from the school district. Kids Count serves students, by and large, that will be offered the opportunity to participate in summer school because of their academic achievement levels. And we never want to say choose between a really good thing and another really good thing. So that partnership would be absolutely amazing if transportation could be provided, because many of our families also face pretty substantial barriers already, transportation being one of them. Also, to echo Christy's statement about the timeline and just thinking about planning, I've been thinking about summer camp since September, but also thinking about when we are notified and when we're able to notify our families also impacts our planning process and booking field trips, engagement opportunities, enrichment, thinking through the logistics as well, finding out in April. Summer camp starts June 3rd. That's a pretty tight window when you're also running out of school programming. Would also love to say that the idea that the school could collaborate with us to figure out the best way to meet the academic needs. Kids Count is already a literacy focused program, and to continue doing that during the summer would be awesome. One suggestion I would like to put out there is for family engagement. Last summer, we offered all of our families the opportunity to attend field trips with us, to go to the pool, to go experience the wonderful things that the city of Gainesville offers. However, with the limitations for chaperones and ratio, we were not able to reimburse for those parents. A lot of our families never have these opportunities with their children to have fun, to play, to learn alongside them. And ultimately, us inviting these families with us, caregivers, members of their support system, in some ways harmed us because that was money that we could not reimburse for. We'd do it again, but if that's something that could be considered as a family engagement opportunity, in addition to bigger events, more ongoing family engagement, that would be really wonderful. Again, to echo what Aldrika said as well about planning and purchasing things, the best of intentions, a family member dies, suddenly a child is now in Tennessee for the entire summer, despite being enrolled and their planned attendance. We still purchased items with that child in mind. Thank you all so, so much for making sure that these opportunities happen for all students and children in Alachua County. It's really wonderful to be a part of a group that cares so much. The
Thanks,
end.
Allison. All right, next speaker. Seconds are valuable in this room. Okay, go ahead, you're right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eli Newman. I run a program called After School Acro Yoga. It's a healing art and movement practice that I've been running for free in the last few years, and several board members and friends and different people recommended that I come here. I don't have an established location nor a large team with me, and so I'm just curious, and we'll be attending office hours to discuss how partnership works with organizations. This is one of my first grant applications, and I really appreciate you making these provisions available for us to serve lower socioeconomic people. And I'm just really wanting to learn more about how exactly to coordinate with different schools in different areas to offer a program when I am not a summer camp, but I would like to offer something at summer camps or enrichment programs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Okay, anyone else?
Hello, everyone. My name is Violet Kyung. This is my first time here, and it's so exciting to see everybody come as a community to serve the kids in our community. I am a behavior analyst. I'm the director of Behavior Bricks. We provide behavior services specifically for kids with special needs. I work every day from 7 o'clock in the morning to like 7 o'clock at night with kids with autism, Down syndrome, you name it, ODD. So we provide behavior strategies in schools, and what I'm looking for is we're looking to partner with the Children's Trust to provide a summer program for kids with specifically for special needs. So I'm here. I just wanted to introduce myself. If any of our community partners and members want to pick my brain on working with kids with special needs, I will be happy to offer my services.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, anyone else? Okay, before we go back to the board, let me just turn it over to staff to go through some of those questions. Do you have any responses to our public comments? I know we have a lot.
So I talk about him, yeah. You want to talk about this?
He's smart, doesn't talk as in shape.
Very smart, Scott.
Good answer.
I think it might be. Do you want me to go line by line? Do you want me to, okay, well, where's my program director? Okay, I'll start with the change in the reimbursement structure, which is what I think I heard to support youth who are not attending daily. So over the last, I think it's been 4 years now, we have required that they were in attendance 1 day a week. Funding. The recommendation is to increase that to 3 days a week. And I do understand that there are times where families may need an older sibling to stay home, or there are additional or extracurricular activities that require them to be elsewhere. They're involved in, they may have a summer job, they may have other sporting activities that they are in. But based on the discussion with the board the last 4 years, the recommendation was to increase that to at least 3 days a week in order for the organization to draw down the funds.
Do an average?
Bonnie, do you know what the average is for? I know that was in one of your presentations. For the days a week, the number of days a week they were attending. Well, what is it for the whole summer then?
See the way it works, y'all they reimburse them on a monthly basis. How about over the month that they average 3 days a week? That way it's.
Does anybody object to that on the board? No?
I
Okay,
think it helps, because if a parent took a week vacation, then they're not penalized, they come the next.
Dr. Labarge.
So as somebody who used to do these kinds of budgets all the time from the application side, have to build in attrition to your cost per day per kid. You have to say, I have capacity for 100 kids, but I know on any given day I'm only going to have 80. And so my cost per kid ought to be based on 80, not 100, even though I have capacity and can go up to 100. Because otherwise you're never gonna catch that up. So I think we need to, as part of our support and education and office hours, as we help people develop budgets, is help them understand they need to plan for attrition within that budget, so that when they give you an estimated cost per kid, they're covering their own likely attrition.
I don't hear any.
Well, I think it's also important to think about how, what Christy just said to me was some of these camps are not all summer. They're only 2-week camps. So.
Yeah.
That's a different animal, but I think.
That's an evaluation criterion, but it's an interactive piece. People, if you're budgeting for a summer camp, you got to budget, especially a 10-week summer camp or even an after-school program. You know you've got capacity for a certain number, but it is never gonna hit that number. For any number of reasons, from rain to sickness to whatever. So it's important that when you guys draft these budgets, you build that into your cost per day.
I guess I will add that this has been a discussion every year. And we finally got to a point, and I think being flexible, but still requiring a minimum is important, and if we can do that flexibility through an average of a month or an average of a couple of weeks, I think that's a good step for where we've been and where we're going. Okay,
So what we'll do is we'll use our average, monthly average based on the past few years, and that is what we'll write into the RFP as a requirement for. Average for 3 days a week. Okay.
objection to that, board members?
Okay.
Okay, you've got consensus on that. Special needs?
Special needs, there was a request to exempt camps that are working with all special needs for half day. I fully support that.
Any objection to that, board members?
So work with.
Member Chance?
Summer camp academic programs are happening and those are half day. And a child could go to a half day program. I'm just wondering about the academic. Other things that might be exceptions on the. Exactly, because if the objective is to have childcare, 8 hours and partner with an elementary school where kids are getting a morning program, I'm just making this up, and somebody could work out the transportation part. I could see a scenario where the afternoon is, you came in the morning for academics and now you're gonna go have fun in the afternoon. I don't.
How did we accomplish, I guess. Are in a summer school morning and then, and they go to camp.
So the requirement is specifically for the organization, not the child.
And the reimbursement. How do you adjust the reimbursement for kids that are only half dayers, or do you? There's a whole set of issues around that.
But I think if they're still attending that camp, they get credit for going that day, even if it's a half a day. If a child is at summer school, they still get credit for going.
All right, so I'm good with that. So no objections to special exceptions for special needs. Yeah. No, I think we have consensus on that, and she supports it. Does anybody object to that? Okay, the next item was flexibility with scholarships.
So I wanna look at that a little bit. I'm hoping somebody from our research evaluation team went back and looked at our table. There was flexibility about, she asked for flexibility about partial scholarships. But when we looked at the data, they would still be included,
Partial scholarships.
partial scholarships,
Yeah.
because we increased the required income. And only 9% of our target population used partial scholarships. That is true. That is very true.
All right, I'm gonna need you on a microphone.
I'm sitting next to, there you go, Scott had one.
While you're coming up here, Member Chance, go ahead.
I guess I'm looking at partial scholarships from a different angle, skin in the game on behalf of the family, and I'm connection between owning up a percentage, showing up more regularly.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Christie's example of a couple of parents giving our staff flexibility for those situations. I think what they need is direction from us. Do they have that flexibility or do they not?
Is the concern, what is the concern? I think if you help us understand what the concern is, because from our perspective, if we increase the income, then who's falling between the cracks? I think maybe if we get a better understanding of that.
But what I heard was that there were, well, I'll let Christie articulate that.
So it's definitely two-part in terms of scholarships. So the family in my head right now, 2 parents, 2 children, they make right at about $100,000. So they will not get any help, any assistance through the Children's Trust. They've been getting it the last 2 summers. And we did about $20 a week that the family paid and the trust covered the rest. And so if that could be an additional option to where the family absolutely has skin in the game, they're paying for part of the fees, just not all of our fees that we raise them to.
How much is your weekly cost?
It's now 130 a week. So we increased from 95 a week to 130, anticipating that we'd be able to support families that were up to 400%. The other piece is when we were on spreadsheets with scholarships, we were able to, as long as we stayed within our budget, we were able to request reimbursement. There wasn't the ability to look with a fine-tooth comb without a whole lot of effort with the fact that all three of us came to camp on the same week. But in that week, we had 50 full scholarships, but in that week, we used 60. So that's where SAMUS now, and the process now limits us is we're gonna stay within the budget, but one week we're gonna have 60 full scholarships, the next week we might have 40.
Back to the average question. Members, how,
It's a different version.
it is, it's a different version of the average question. So members, how do you feel about this? I mean,
Like, I want to stick with what we recommended. I feel like it's fair.
Dr. Lombardo?
Again, attendance for these kids is erratic. I think where you want us to be within the budget is at the end of the contract. If it gets spent unevenly at the end of the day, if you've used it up, you've used it up. You know, so you reconcile at the end, but letting people get ahead or behind depending on how their attendance flows makes some sense to me. If we're paying on a per diem basis.
God, is that something Sam, we can make adjustments to within SAMUS?
Yeah. But again, you can't exceed the total amount of the contract. That
Christie?
I think the thing, that's the thing. I think if we allow, I'm not afraid of flexibility or change. But what happens is when we have contracts and we have specific numbers and specific requirements in place for this camp, and then this camp has something different, and then this one has something different, and then we're talking about 30 summer camp providers who may be asking us for all things very different. It's not necessarily about do they stay in their budget? It's about what we have to create in SAMUS to ensure everyone's collecting the same data, how all the data is being collected, how their attendance is being collected. What we purchased SAMUS to be able to collect all of that, generate a report and you know, report it back to the board. If everybody has something different, I'm not sure what we're able to show you all. If it all looks very different.
I'm not willing to change this one. Member Certain.
I want to make sure I'm tracking correctly. So I heard you said you were highly recommending that we only offer full scholarships, but partial scholarships were not off the table. But in order to get a scholarship, they have to be in meet the 300%.
The 300%, or they are a child in foster care. Okay, all right.
I want to push back a little.
Go ahead.
Because none of the things you said, Christy, are impacted by budgetary flexibility. Still going to collect attendance. You're still going to get that data per kid. You're still going to know who came, how many times a week, how many times. I think the only thing we're saying is allowing that flexibility in terms of this week you bill for 60, that next week you bill for 40 that are getting these full scholarships, as long as at the end of the contract in the allotted amount, that doesn't change any of the attendance data. It doesn't change any of the other data. It just changes how quickly or slowly you spend the money. Unless I'm really missing something, I don't know what else is changing. If all I'm changing is how I bill you for how many full scholarship days.
It's not the same amount every time.
Right.
She has the flexibility for it to be
Right.
up and down. As long as it's
Yeah,
closer to the pie.
and
But I think she already does that. That's why I'm still asking.
she's saying no. So that's what I'm not clear about then.
Well, from a contract manager perspective, it's very time consuming to go through that and try to figure that out, which makes their fiscal reimbursement take longer to get to them, because Max and I had to go through and really figure it out, because this was based on their proposal. So they proposed that they would have 50 scholarships, and when we look at the attendance, and then we have to go through and figure out, so did 60 kids came this week, and then we have to go to make sure that we're not double paying. It does make the process a little bit longer. And also, I don't think that would be an issue, because we won't have partial scholarships. So I think what was happening was that, particularly if I can remember, it was, you had a set amount of scholarships for full, but then you were using some of the participants you had. Did you have partial scholarships? Yeah. So we don't have partial scholarships, so you won't have to worry about that fluctuation, because you won't have to worry about, okay, well, I did 50 full scholarships this week, and then I only used 10 partial this week. Partial, if we keep with that, partial will be gone. So the flexibility should be there, because we won't have that full and partial scholarship. You get what I'm saying? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So the way we had asked the question with the spreadsheets was, our numbers were 60 and 30. And so for 60 full scholarships, could we count on 600 weeks of scholarships? And so looking at it from that perspective, again, because not all of our kids are coming for all 10 weeks. So we know, especially the last 2 weeks of the summer, our number is going to be significantly lower. The last week, much lower. So then we allot more scholarships in the beginning of the summer. We cover more children in the beginning of the summer, knowing that we're going to have lower population towards the end of the summer.
Oh, I understand.
So we
Okay.
would stay within
You're basically
600.
saying the scholarships over the term of the program, not bi-weekly. Is that something that's okay to track and easy to track, staff, or no? Scott? By the kid, not the week.
So we ultimately serve more children because we had the flexibility with 600 weeks. And so it wasn't just 60 kids at 10 weeks each.
Because, and I'm from a parent's perspective, like when I booked my kids, by March or April, I was done, right? So I knew where they were gonna be for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, for the whole 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And I understand what she's saying. Let's not attach it to a kid. Let's just give her 600 weeks, because a family may say they get a full scholarship for June and July, but they know they're not gonna be there those last 2 weeks of July because they have to take family vacation. So it may be another family who needs some assistance, and they meet the income qualification, and she wants to be able to have that flexibility to give that family. It's all in the 60 scholarships she would have over the 10 weeks.
Right. Mr. Chair, I tell you what, why don't we've heard both sides on, I would say that I think the executive director wants to keep it the way it is. Move that we just keep it the way it is.
Anyone else want to talk about this particular item, scholarships, before we get to the next one? And we're almost done.
All right, Lee, what'd you say? You want the executive director to
Keep with the recommendation that we had. That was the increase, that we increased the percentage, the household percentage.
I can deal with that, but what I think what I really want the providers to have the flexibility to do is what Christy just mentioned, because of the way families come. I don't want to attach a scholarship to student A, and she budgets for them, and then their family may say they may not be there for 3 weeks at the end, and then she may get a call from someone who needs care that meet these income or those other criteria. And if she's got a scholarship, why wouldn't she be able to give it to them?
She can.
So if she can currently do that.
She can.
It sounds like staff is.
So you sound very confident, Demetrica, and I don't disagree with you. But our provider, and she's done this work for a while, she seems that.
Can you do that?
So let's make sure that she understands that what.
And that is what we'll do. We'll make sure she understands.
Okay.
All right. I love the debate. I think it's important and it's valuable, but we do have to move on. Was there anything else that we need to address from public comment?
You said there was one more item? Quite a bit.
Hold on, hold on.
We're halfway through the list.
Oh, never chance?
Oh, we're not through the list?
No, not yet. Let's finish the list. Go ahead, Christie.
There was a request regarding CPR. CPR is required for everyone annually, depending on the expiration of their training. So when they're training, and it's only one person per organization.
Also ones there that can do CPR.
So that has not changed. Hasn't changed. That has not changed. That has been the same. Release of RFP funding, I agree. It comes out Friday.
Transportation.
Transportation, we have partnered with the school district once before to support organizations with field trips. Dr. Patton, if that's something we could speak to you about, we'd be happy to speak to you about that. I think they expanded that a bit more to see if it could also be from summer school to a summer camp. Is that what I heard? Okay,
That was a request.
that was a request.
What, didn't the trust pay the district for that?
So
The
each,
providers, something.
through the providers, there was funding for transportation to pay the school
field
district to
trips.
support field trips.
So who would we speak to? Because time period this year? Is that like during the whole summer when we don't have drivers that are working or?
So we were able to build a relationship with the director of transportation through the school district. And from there, they were able to provide our summer camps with certain dates. I think our summer camps had to go ahead and provide them with their field trip dates. And then therefore, they were able to work out a schedule for each location and when drivers and the buses would be available. And then the last one was, I didn't catch your name, but you were interested.
Sean?
Well, she made a comment about her camp, but it was another gentleman who was here, Eli. Eli was interested in learning a bit more about collaboration. I'd say let's get together before Friday, before it was released. All right.
Okay, Member Chance?
I think my comment was, and I don't know who said it from the providers, but the timeline is late for notification and planning. Is there, and I know we can't do anything about that this year, but is there a reason why we couldn't adjust that for next year? Or the
We'll do it again next year.
okay, but
Let me clarify. So when they renew, it will be January. So this RFP comes out now, but each year we're just renewing their contracts. They'll know, further in advance so that they can prepare. So closer to the new year, because it'll be a renewal for the next 2 cycles. So each renewal comes out well before February and March.
Okay, so we've got a 6-part motion. I'm gonna ask Commissioner Pinkerton to just repeat it. Go ahead, repeat it real quick. Make sure your light's on.
The first 3 were the ones that were staff recommendations. The 4th was to include bonus points for lacrosse. 4th was to coordinate with the school board recommendations about the age appropriate reading materials for the summer programs. And to change, and this last one was to change the point allocation as discussed by our chair and Christie.
Okay, we've had some questions. You have understanding of all
Okay.
any further comments to the motion? Okay, with that then, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? That motion is unanimous. Okay, great job. Without the snow day, good input. We have 15 minutes to rush. Bonnie loves it when we rush her through. So we are on now to the next item, which is 13, continuous quality improvement. We've got 14 strategic plan and 15 the resolution. That's a simple one. How long for these next 2?
Move approval of the resolution.
Okay, got a motion to approve the resolution. That's number 15. Is there anyone that wants to speak to that? Okay, any public comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just
Opposed?
to let you know, I have vested interest in that.
Okay.
Because that gets you off. Is that why? Puts me on and takes you off?
Lee's off, Maggie's on, I'm on. All right, so we've got the strategic plan discussion and the continuous quality improvement. How much
And I'm
time
gonna-
do you need for those? One second.
For Bonnie,
It's cold.
10 minutes.
And-
What about
and
the
I- you
strategic
know,
plan? Hold on.
No,
It's independent, so it's the same. She's just providing you with information. 10 minutes.
and I think next time we need to put Bonnie at the front end of the agenda.
Yeah, so, yeah. Bonnie has 2 presentations in,
Okay,
but if she can do 10 minutes, Bonnie, do you think you can do both in 10? The second one is.
Go for it.
all right, go for it, Bonnie. You're recognized.
Ma'am, did you ready? 2024. Our six. Doing. So we can highlight PQI as well as the people in our organization. Organization. That gives them a rundown of what they're rating to. What went well on them. Next is the locality. You're wrong, you have a tool. Go out and they, and January, the
compiled and we shared them out with the providers, inviting them to give their comments and meet with us as needed. Certainly for any providers that have an emerging rating, the invitation is we definitely want to meet with them and start to hear how improvements can be made. So this is a process where we are communicating the results and they can see and hear about how they did on the tool. These are the results for fiscal year 2024. So for fiscal there's our three categories. Mastering for fiscal means that they expended 90% or more of their budget. Advancing is between 60 and 89%, and emerging means they spent under 60%. So 60% of providers are expending 90% or more of their budget. For operations, that's the combination of acknowledgement and communications. So 94% of providers are either in advancing or mastering for that. And the definitions of this is explained within the tool itself, as well as a little blurb about it on the former slide. For performance measure, we definitely have the highest percentage of emerging, but we have set the bar high for that. For that, any providers that have less than 80% of their performance measures as unmet, or even that is rated as emerging. And we want to continue to set the bar high for that, because that's where our child outcomes are. That's where our program quality is. That's where our service delivery is. And we want to continue to make sure that that is flagged as emerging and something that we want to continue to work and support providers on. Data quality, there's also, that's the second one with the highest percentage of emerging. But again, we want to continue to raise the bar on that, make sure that providers are getting their data in and of quality, and that's improved a lot over the course of the years, as I'll show you on my next slide. Population focus, very few emerging there, and then service delivery, there's 14% of providers that had emerging in service delivery. So this slide shows our results historically, and when I look at this slide, I see a lot of improvement. Just looking from left to right, fiscal, we see a big jump in providers in the mastering category. That means they're able to draw down more dollars, and in operations, we see emerging the yellow bars that's going down too. And I think part of this might even be due to the CQI process, because we're routinely clarifying expectations and revisiting this, because when maybe a provider got emerging last year, they said, well, what do I need to do to make sure I can get to at least advancing or mastering? For performance measures as well, we see that while this year we do have 33% still emerging, we're a lot better than we were in previous years. That providers are getting more familiar with the process, and they're getting better at looking how to really focus on achieving those outcomes that are in the contract. Data quality as well, the emerging is trending downwards. And so looking at this all together, I feel like the process is working as intended, where we're revisiting the results, we're clarifying the expectation, we're seeing where maybe revisions or more support is needed. So more on performance measures. The first chart, bar chart with the yellow, green, and the greens. So for the emergent, I broke it down. So anything under 80% of their performance measures, when they're unmet, and they could be just unmet by 1 point or one, it's whether they met it or not. Some of them, they fall more in the region of the 70 to 90%. And we've even said, hey, do we want to make it lower? But we decided against it. We wanted to keep the bar high with that. But there are some that do fall just below the 80%. So I did want to highlight that where they fall on an interval level. As far as the average percentage of performance targets met by contract and fiscal year, we can see that that has been going up slightly. We had an average across providers of 74.7% of providers meeting their performance measures in fiscal year 22. It went up only by a tiny amount, slightly, in fiscal year 23 to 75%. And then in fiscal year 24, there was 81% of providers that met their target, our performance targets. So it has over time kind of been improving some as providers are becoming more accustomed to contracting with us and tracking their performance measures. There's always going to be new providers as I went through the list to look at all the providers. There are some that are going to continue with us, and then we're always going to be bringing on new providers as well. So while provider tenure does tend to get them more acclimated with tracking their evaluation results and services for children. There are always going to be new things that we're adding as we want to do more, and there's always going to be new providers that we're bringing on and supporting from that first year of implementation, which can be pretty tough, to getting to the point where they are just maintaining their programs. So CQI in 2025, we always want to keep improving our continuous improvement process. So we want to add to the tool comparisons to previous years. We also want to add additional fiscal components to provide more information on that. We want to also, we've added training as a requirement to the contract. So we want to provide feedback to providers on whether they're meeting expectations related to the new training completion components that are added to the contract. So that's my quick version of CQI.
All right, members, questions?
Packet. And it breakdown of all the individual programs.
Yes.
It's not done on a yearly basis, but you've got the different things, and then over on the side it says program status, says not funded or funded. Does that mean they haven't got their funds for a program that we've approved, or they just never got funding initially? But that wouldn't make sense because you've already got mastering, advancing.
So these are their rating, their CQI ratings in fiscal year 2024, and then that's their status as of today. So all of our summer camp programs, they're marked as not funded because right now that's sort of still pending. But some of the programs like the mentoring mini grants, that was a one-time funding. Some of the programs, because of we had some programs that had their funding sunset during the 2024 year, like Project Youth Build and New Tech Now. There were some programs that ended with in the April time period. So that's just their status as of today and their ratings as of 2024.
So Bonnie, are y'all going to come up with some internal standards, like you funding for last year and you got emerging or whatever, next year you need to be mastering, or whatever the middle category, advancing. And by the third year, you need to be mastering all of it. I mean, are those the standards that y'all are creating?
But not not to that extent, but yes, we are looking at the process and ensuring that if you have a specific number of emerging, so for an example, everyone who has an emerging, they have received an email, they have to have a meeting with us so that we can talk about the next steps, any type of training that you need to have, so that we can make that determination. There are some listed here without calling anyone out that it says they are not funded. They are not funded because they had too many emerging.
So they are doing it, yeah.
And some self-selected. They elected not to continue to receive funding because they knew they could not meet the standard.
I would move that we continue the CQI implementation.
Second by the Honorable Doug Bullard. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Is there any public
Motion was
discussion?
made by the dishonorable.
You said it, it was implied, but you said it. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor say aye. All right. Next item, is there anyone here that is here to speak about the strategic plan? No, okay. Bonnie, go ahead. You have minus 20 seconds, but take your time.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Take your time. What?
Okay, this one is largely an FYI, but the purpose of the presentation is to share the status of trends of indicators of child well-being in Alachua County from the strategic plan that was approved in June 2023. I definitely won't be going through each of the indicators slide by slide, but they are included in the packet. I did want to say a couple words about the purpose, background, and provide a synopsis of the data that I shared. So basically what this population accountability is part of the results-based accountability framework. We look at the overall trends in child well-being in our county, and that we want to ensure that every child is at their maximum potential, and that Alachua County is a great place for children to grow up. So in order to do this, we obviously need to be joined by a lot of partners. We do not own any of these indicators in entirety. We need to have great partnerships. We need to have people in the room that want to work with us. So I did want to mention that this is definitely a shared responsibility in order to be change agents for these measures. So the whole child is what we'll look at when we think about the whole population, is what we look about when we think about the key indicators with the program participants. That's our CQI. So we hope that we fund programs that are of quality and that they're getting the outcomes that contributes to the county population and will help us move and turn the curve on these indicators. But just wanted to say that these are not owned by us in entirety, and I wanted to share what they were. This is a screenshot from the strategic plan and what we had chosen, and just wanted to give a highlight of the results. So these are 16 key indicators. According to the most recent year that we had data for, Alachua County is doing better than the state in prenatal care, infant mortality, child abuse and neglect, kindergarten readiness, third grade reading, domestic violence, and chronic absence. Alachua County children were faring worse than the state in low birth weight, VPK enrollment in quality childcare, third grade math, adolescents hospitalized for self-harm, youth who felt sad or hopeless, youth arrests, and high school graduations. A couple of other highlights. While we are faring worse than the state in recent years, we've seen dramatic improvement among the youth who felt hopeless or sad. So that while we're still worse than the state, we've gone down significantly. And then also youth that have self-harming behaviors, that has also gone down. So while we're still slightly worse than the state, I think by like a percentage point or so, we've gone down quite a bit. And then I also wanted to point out that the infant mortality is the lowest it's been in Alachua County like for at least 10 years. It's the first time I think it's ever been below the state. So I thought that was something to point out as well, worthy of pointing out. And I would say more, but I'm going to keep it short. But I would like to acknowledge Jordan Sutherland, who went through a lot of work to compiling this data. So thank you, Jordan.
Jordan. Okay, members, any comments for Bonnie on this one? Can I get a motion to receive the report?
Nancy does.
Okay, member Chance and then member Park.
I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate that you have the overall metrics that are big, like on a topic like VPK enrollment, and then you specify what we contributed to it, understanding that we're a piece of the puzzle, and there's a lot of external factors that we don't control. So I just wanted to acknowledge that out loud, because I think sometimes programs take credit for or blame for something that is much more holistic than what we're contributing. So.
Member Hart?
I just want to advocate for Bonnie to have a better position in the agenda, because I think
what I just wrote down.
that was so important. And we should spend more time on that, because that's what everything is about.
Yeah.
And thank you, Bonnie. I'm really sorry. You're always last, and that's not right.
Member, thank you. Want to add anything else though? No, okay, good. Member Certain and then member Pinkett.
I'm gonna tell you what I put on my thing was, I was trying to be positive and say it was ambitious to try to get out of here in 2 hours. I'm not saying we have a long meeting, but you failed to acknowledge that we would have only had a workshop for the RFP and our regular meeting. And I think it was a little bit too ambitious to try to do both of those in 2 hours, so.
A lot, it's definitely a lot. Well, you can say it now.
She just did.
Okay. Go ahead. Member Pinkett.
So Bonnie, as you have heard that there are a lot of factors that go into it. I think one of the most positive things that we hear about the infant, portion of it, because that's something that the county's invested in and took it over. And do you think it's a result of some of emphasizing the newborn, prior to being born and then after? Has that made it, and do y'all think that it made a difference? Because it's been, what, 6 years? It looked really good.
Yeah, it's really great. It's really great data. I think it's definitely a collective effort, and there's probably a lot of factors that went into that, but we have invested in the newborn program, and we were also, that program had served, I think, the most families ever last year, looking at their since inception. So I think that contributes to definitely infants being past their first birthday. But I'm sure there's other factors as well.
I'm sure there is, but
Many
I
other
think,
factors
I
as well.
think if it looks similar next year, then that's something that we ought to hype, because it's something that the county and then the Children's Trust as a result. And that was kind of born out of the Children's Trust is kind of born out of some of those activities that we highlighted, because that's a big deal. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, motion to receive the report. Motion and a second, Member Chance. You have a comment?
Mine was a general comment, so I'm sorry.
Any public comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I know you have to leave, Member Bold, so we are now to general public comments. Anyone from the public wishes to address this board? Raise your hand. On up, Chrissy. No. I know you have to leave, so we've gotten all right. Thank you. All right.
I just want to be very, Christy Arrington, Girls Place. Just want to be very grateful. I think we can all attest that the last month and a half has been really overwhelming. And I think that being in this room reinforces how important and how valuable it is that we have local funding supported by local people. So thank you. It feels good and a little less overwhelming.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, anybody else from the public? Okay, let's go to member comments. Member Chance, you have anything?
I heard in another forum about updates to something I know very little about, but the Sunshine Data Portal on early childhood, like how state and local policymakers and funders can know if you have enough high quality childcare in a community. And it made me wonder about any training or updates from the Anita Zucker Center to the board well before we do the next early childhood cycle. Data that's available, what we know is actually helpful in moving the needle from readiness.
So I too just heard about that the Sunshine Portal information was going to be presented. And the plan is to ask Herman to come and provide some information to the board. So just haven't gotten to it. Literally just was told that on Friday.
Right.
So
Maybe we were at the same meeting or different. But when is the next cycle timeline for?
I don't think we have anything coming up for early childhood. So we have time. I'm thinking April or May would be when I would ask him to get on the agenda.
Thank you.
Member Hart, anything?
I just want to make sure everybody has on their radar what's going on with the Alice families in Alachua County. We need to understand because all our providers are dealing with Alice families. Not everybody in this community that needs us is really, really poor, but the Alice families are just teetering. And there are things that we can do as the Children's Trust, and I want us to learn more about those things.
Member Patton? Oh, I'm sorry, Member Twallis?
I just want to thank Bonnie, because as someone who chaired the strategic planning, I had a lot of comments that I didn't want to rush through, so I'm going to send you some that I'll just follow up with you individually. All that work.
For Patton? If there's anything you want us to hear. No, okay. Member Certain? Member Lavarda?
Only because I can't talk.
Well, I did, it was noted when the judge showed up that she ran across the hallway, gave her a big hug, and that was the only person in the whole room that happened to. So,
I want to say it was rushed in many respects, and Bonnie, I to support the idea of putting you closer to the front of the agenda, but this was really excellent discussion. I mean, I
Okay.
think we're in a place now where we have some, I feel finally really meaning processes. So, and that's because staff are giving us such good information. So thank you.
my only comment was, I know we missed that workshop. Much of it we handled tonight. Really appreciate all of the backup and the support that you provided to us prior to the meeting. The staff, great job. Great first meeting in here. I think next meeting, maybe move these tables a little bit closer together, give our public more room. We'll figure out something with the water bottle and speaking and we'll figure out a green, yellow, red light system for the public so that you know, kind of, you've got a few minutes, a few seconds before the wrap up your comments. So we're working on it, work in progress, but it's great to be in this building. March 29th is a big open house. Let's spread the word. And Tina, what did you want to say? You have something else?
I was just gonna suggest to Marcia that we get a clock. There's one, Jackie got one when we were doing the rezoning. It sits on the table and it has a remote, and she said it was less than $50.
Yeah, it's really expensive. Yeah. It's really for the public to see that they
See there.
so they can see they have 30 minutes to wrap up, 30 seconds to wrap up their
Or
comment.
it could just use a cat.
I think our superintendent heard that, so we'll take care of that. I just want to say thank you to the team, and board members. We hear you, we understand. This was not ideal, but it was really our only option. And I also wanted to recognize Katrina Welch. Katrina, will you raise your hand? I'm so sorry. Katrina is our new program specialist. I forgot to recognize her. And I don't see her in the room, but the young lady that was taking pictures, in addition to Jordan, Naomi is our new communications intern. We may be having a baby here any day now.
Baby.
Communications, we'll be gaining a member and losing a member all at the same time. So you'll be seeing a few new faces in the place. So I forgot to mention them, and I wanted to say welcome to them as well. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. We've got some information items, 16, 17, and 18, which I presume you all have read. And the next meeting is March 10th, 4 p.m. right here.
Right here.
And we have an open house on March that. We are adjourned.
We remind folks to leave their surveys.
Don't forget to leave your surveys.
Oh, they're talking about non-schools. So I guess that's what a school called.